Hey everyone, welcome to Light Beyond Limits, a podcast where we talk about the stories and breakthroughs that we have with our own limitations and the lessons that we've learned from it. My name is William Blake, and I'm excited today because we get the chance to hear from the one, the amazing Dallin Candland, who is one of my friends. He's been my friend for the last decade. Wow, it's been that long, the last decade that we've been doing it. He himself is an author, a speaker, a poet. He has his own podcast where he helps people get closer to God as well as just help people in general. So, Dallin, I'm super excited to have you on. Thanks for coming.
Yeah, man. And whether a decade or not, this is a friendship for all seasons. We're more than Pokemon, like ending and beginning again. Like this is getting better and better and better and better. So I'm excited, man.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Let's just jump right into it. Before we talked, we mentioned that this is the podcast where we talk about breaking through limits, and you mentioned about writing and how that was a limitation for you that you broke through. Will you just tell the story about that?
Yeah, I think there's multiple. I think for me, the deepest part of it was fourth grade when I was in a class and we had these little reading records that we would do. We'd write about the things that we read about that week. And so I was doing that. And then like my teacher's like, bro, like this guy's handwriting is so bad, like so bad. And they thought I had some serious mental deficiencies. And so I got taken out of that class and put into a class with people that have a lot more mental deficiencies or struggles to focus, etc. And I have ADHD, but yeah, everybody's different. But I was in that remedial reading group for about a week and was reading these books that you would probably read in like first or second grade. And they realized, this guy is very sharp and we definitely made a mistake. And so they took me out of that class and they put me back in the reading, back with my group. And I started doing assignments on the computer. I had a teacher that was flexible in that way. She realized her mistake and she's like, oh, sorry, we're just gonna have you do all your assignments on the computer. And this is real. Like there was times where she's like, all right, Dallin, everybody's doing their assignments on paper. You go do yours on the computer. And I'd leave the desk and I'd go and work on the computer, this one little computer by itself. And I don't know how in the world I was okay with that. It's like, wow, go Dallin, you've guts, man. But yeah, there's just been these moments and these things that have literally singled me out. And I think that is what this does. And then fast forward to present day, I have a poetry book. I have fans of that poetry book. I've been made over 1,000 Instagram posts. They all have really deep writing with them and just my soul, my heart. And writing is everything for me, man. Like it helps me know what to say, helps me with my public speaking, helps me with my podcast, helps with all these things. And it's really taught me so much about how has so much more to do with what's on the paper, has to do with what's inside.
That's man, that that hit a brick in my head. Has to do with what's inside. How'd your journey start? I know I've heard we talk all the time, right? And we've heard each other's stories and everything. But for my listeners, what made you start? Not with just with writing, but with the self-development journey that you've taken yourself on.
I think it was the singling out thing, but this time I did it for myself. I have a book written on this, but I haven't finished it yet. Eighth grade, I was going to start my next year of school, and deep down in my soul and spirit, it was dying, it was decaying, it was crying for help and for mercy because being at school, I just felt didn't really fit in. I was wearing a sweater and jeans usually to school because I didn't really like or appreciate my appearance a ton. And there was times where I would go, but it just wasn't, I didn't really vibe with many people. And it was a struggle. I think a lot of it was trying to reach really far and not really getting much back. Like trying to reach up a tree, but there's like nothing there. There's no fruits there. It's like nothing that actually tastes good to you. So that was a struggle. But I remember 2 days before I started eighth grade, or really soon before I started eighth grade, me and my mom were sitting on my sister's bed. And this was a while ago. So my sister was like 2. So that was my room back then. And I was just talking with her and I'm like, Mom, I really, really, really don't want to do this at all. It's like, look at these classes. Like some reason I just don't feel this at all. And my wonderful mother, she was like that old teacher and she was flexible and she wants to help out the student rather than look good or whatever. She wants to help out really. And so she looked into it, and I ended up being homeschooled. My mom started a school. It still technically exists, and I just did homeschool. And so while my friends, or I didn't really have any like really, really good friends, honestly. If there were some, they were like younger, the ones I vibed the most with, but they were waking up at like 7 a.m. dying, I was getting up at like 9 or 10, do like a couple things, and it was nice. And the best part was my mom had me read a ton of books. I could read whatever I wanted, didn't have to read any of the trash, absolute trash that other people were reading. And I got to read whatever I wanted to read, do my own book reports, read a little bit from My Dairy Youth by Dan Forth, and some other books have really hit me on a deep level and really awakened something. And so going to high school, I had, a different change of mindset. I realized I could take myself out of the game and rebuild and be in a way better place than others with a lot of things mentally for sure. But there's still a lot of work to do. And I think that's the most beautiful thing. But if you're willing to take that step out, we're thinking about doing a similar thing for one of my sisters. She's kind of in a similar boat, and I can sort of see it. And I'm like, dude, like, yo, take her out of the game, let her rebuild and work, because it changed my life completely, man. And it's a good story too.
Taking your sister out of public school into homeschool.
Just kind of have her do her own thing. Because I have ADHD, and I think a lot of it is a warrior instinct. Like I love fighting, and so sitting down for hours is not great. Like I want to be making a battle plan. Like recently, I've just been walking around while writing. Like I walked 8 miles yesterday. There's one day a couple weeks ago, I walked like 10 miles walking around writing stuff. And that's Moneyball, dude. So I read Percy Jackson and the Olympians when I was fourth or fifth grade, and that guy has ADHD. And this is before I even knew I had ADHD, but some things vibed with me. Now that book vibes with me on a whole different level because he was just wanting to fight, and so for me, putting out all the content I do, it's like this helps me keep going, and it's encouraging people and it's uplifting people, and it's a beautiful thing, man. But when I feel like my hands are strapped behind my back and I'm like trying to fit in or whatever, jump through some hoops, bro, I'm dying, man. Felt that way multiple times.
A lot of people have, maybe it's just me. I feel like a lot of people are diagnosed with ADHD, but I don't think that many people have ADHD. I think it's how maybe you were raised as a kid or something like that. But for you, someone who has ADHD in the self-development realm and as throughout your whole entire life, how have you managed it or how have you made it effective to where maybe it was something that was challenging before and now you use it as an advantage in life?
Yeah, I think a big part of it is the going deep thing. And so that's why I surround myself with things that help me go deep. And it's a lot of stuff that I've written, things that God has given me, like my poetry book. Like I've been trying to memorize some of it, so I can share with people as I go on about sharing scriptures. But yeah, man, it just makes me think about like back in the day of Pokemon. Like I could tell you like when this Pokemon learned that, like even to this day, I could tell you like when a lot of the Pokemon evolve, like I'm pretty sure Machop evolves into Machoke at level 23, et cetera, et cetera. And those are things I like burned into my brain. I didn't even realize it. You know, it was like 5 or 6. And Pokemon helped me learn to read. So I have a brain that's extremely adaptable and extremely able to focus. And so for me, it's having these really clear signals and routines. So I have music playlists for different vibes, different things. So I have one for building my podcast, and this is a gradual. This is an always happening thing. Like if you'd asked me a year ago, it would have been a different answer. But I'm building all these playlists and all these different things just to help reroute myself and guide me to the things I want to do when I feel distracted. Like I have a running playlist that, dude, I promise you, whenever I listen to it, I'm like, bro, we got to go on a run right now. And it's the craziest thing. And it's just like I've been drilling it into my brain. And so on a very short answer, it's carving the pathways I want instead of letting anybody else carve the pathways. Like these are the pathways I want. There's a track record that when Dallin does what he wants to do and puts his heart into it, like things work out very well. Dallin does very well when Dallin just gets to do his own thing. And that's a part of me being full time now. I've been full time as we're doing this. It was February 9th, my first day of being full time, right? So there's a lot of that, but it's about carving their own pathways and not letting other people do it, being extremely intentional about it. You know, in The Magic of Thinking Big, the guy talks about having a thought factory and like intentionally putting thoughts in there. I don't think people do that. You know, I've been learning to do that on a very deep level, be like, these are the thoughts I want to have, you know, affirmations or whatever, and writing these deep things out for myself and spending a lot of time in that. It just changes how you look, how you feel, and over time. And I think everybody's different, but this is what I found works extremely well for me. And I'm always working to do better and better and better at it, go deeper.
Such a powerful point. Us as kids, we'd go deep into things that we love. I'm with you. Pokemon is awesome. And when I was a kid, I called myself the Pokemon master. Now there's so many generations out there. I don't know what Pokemon's in. But like the first 4 generations, I'm like, I'm your guy. I know what's going on. It's like Ghastly level 25 is when it evolves into Haunter.
Yep, that's
And
right.
like,
Uh-huh.
and it's just so funny how what we as kids we have this innate ability to, if we love something, we'll go deep into it. And I don't think it's our intention as a kid to go deep into it, but I feel that because we like it as a kid, we expose ourselves more to it. And because we expose ourselves more to it, then the natural course of things lets us go deeper into it. So I love that powerful point of it's nowadays, like with all the stresses with work, finances, family, relationships, building our own business or being an author and writing, that we need to set our own intentions. But we can still have that kid-like ability where the more that we expose ourselves, the more we can get that deep level experience and quality that you were talking about. You have a podcast that you've deep dived deep into because you have way over 400 episodes now, right?
It's 449. It's the most recent.
That is crazy for most people, because I think I read a statistic where it was like 90 like 10% of podcasters are no 90% of podcasters do not make it past episode 8, and then of that 10%, only 1% makes it past episode 21. And so you're obviously way past episode 21. How'd you stick to it to get over 400 episodes of that? How? Like, I'll share your wisdom. How did you do it?
One of the biggest things was knowing that I'd done a similar thing before. So I started a YouTube channel when I was 15 with some friends playing video games. We had 100 videos on that channel. By its 1 year anniversary, and we play like Mario Kart and Smash Bros and stuff. And I learned some basic video editing from that and learned a lot about just putting myself out there. And it took some time, but ended up making a big impact on some people. And as of this recording, I still keep in touch with some of those people. And as a way to relax from my writing and stuff, I decided to stream on Twitch a little bit just as a solo thing. And some of those people that watched those videos back in 2012 are still just cheering me on right now. And so I think a lot of it is A, not letting my audience or future audience down, knowing that I have something to give and staying with it. I've had times where God has put people in my life because of my willingness and my ability and my more or less clarity in that moment, knowing he's like, oh yeah, I put down in that guy's path, and Dallin's just gonna be like, trust God, man, because that's that guy needs to hear, or whatever's on Dallin's mind. So I think it comes down to those two things. It's about not letting your current audience or future audience down, and just that track record. You know, I had over 500 videos on that group channel before it finished up, and I let that go. And now I just do it as a hobby, whereas before maybe it was more like a bigger part of my life because I didn't have the podcast back then. But yeah, man, I think a lot of it is just that. And also, these are the three. This is a big three, right? So we got the not letting your audience or future audience down. And then there's the having that few personal track record from before. And third is I want to get there, man. I want the future version. I want that to happen. I want the change that will happen. I want all of the growth. I want the personal identity change. See, that's what I got with the gaming YouTube channel. I got all this speaking experience, like just me talking to a camera, and that's invaluable, especially in today's world. Maybe it wasn't as much back in 2012. Now it's invaluable. So doing that for my future self. And so what will be interesting to look at, you know, once I've done a year of streaming on Twitch, you know, just doing it off and on and just being like, okay, you know, this is what I've grown, this is where I've learned. And because now doing it as a hobby, it's like, I don't really care. I just do it as a way to do other things. And I know money will come elsewhere and I don't have to overthink or overfocus. It's just me showing up. But you just show up and things change, you change, and the brain changes. Your brain becomes associated with these things, and your brain wants to continue going. And there's a beautiful thing. And especially when you get people reaching out and be like, hey, man, I like this episode. It's like that episode is 2 downloads, but like you reached out. Like that's a big deal, man. Like I will keep going because there are bigger things ahead. And a lot of it is believing that.
You mentioned the book, The Magic of Thinking Big. And I know you're just like me, where we have massive dreams that we want to have and achieve. How has that played into your life of thinking big?
Yeah, man.
Do you got that
Th-
right there? Heck
this
yeah.
book this book has helped me a lot, brother. Like when I was going through a difficult time, I literally had this in my car, and I'd get in the car and I'd just open up to a random page. So I just literally opened up to a random page just now. So often I hear someone say, I picked up a great idea this noon at the meeting or during the meeting yesterday. I got to thinking, remember, a mind that feeds only on itself soon is undernourished, becoming weak and incapable of creative, progressive thought. Stimulation from others is excellent mind food. So this guy was talking about like mind food and stuff like that back in the 50s. That's crazy because I talk about thought food all the time. And yeah, man, the book has blown me away. And it's definitely one of the ones that's made the biggest impact on me for sure. And has helped me a ton. And I first started, I think I was 17, I believe, and it completely just changed so many different things. And I come back to it all the time, man. It has helped me a very, very big deal. And I have a couple copies of it. So I have one in my car, have one with me. And just with the brain, bro, I'm sure I could memorize whole chapters if I wanted, you know, in the future. There's just no limit. But the book has so much power in it. It definitely has helped me out a great deal just to think bigger and to make more space for those things to come through.
Mm, I love that. Where actually the book club I'm doing, that is the book that we're talking about, The Magic of Thinking Big. And so
Dang, bro.
I haven't read it until this month, and I've only gone through the first couple chapters, but I'm like, dang, this is good. I didn't know it was back in the 1950s. That's crazy. It's like Stephen R. Covey with his Seven Habits. That book is it's been around for a while, but it's so applicable to back then, today, and into the future. And I think there's only a few books that are like that. Magic of Thinking Big is one. The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People are another. Like they're just those select books that back when it was unpopular to focus on self-development, personal growth, and you had to do the 9 to 5 for 40 years to retire at 65. There were still those big-minded thinkers who were out there changing the world so that we could be where we're at today. It's so crazy.
You know,
What?
I've thought. Oh,
Go
sorry.
ahead. No, go ahead.
I've thought a lot about that Steve Jobs quote. That's like, the people that are crazy enough to believe they can change the world are usually the ones that do. I've been finding that to be the case to a certain degree, because like if you can change your own world a little bit, you can certainly change somebody else's, at least to a certain degree. And it's like that quote, to one person, to the world you might be one person, but to one person you might be the world. And so you can definitely change how individual people's worlds look. You know, I played a lot of RPG games like Paper Mario and stuff like that. And so you think of like in Paper Mario, if somebody's town all of a sudden had Dallin showing up or Willie show up, and it's like helping encourage all these new changes, you are changing the makeup of that person's world and how it works. There's a lot of people that are mentors from afar from me. James Clear is certainly one of them. Greg McEwen is another, and they are encouraging me from afar, and they're changing my world to a certain degree. I was listening to Essentialism on Audible on a walk in the woods, and he said something about the 90%, like having all those, making a certain criteria for things, and then only accepting the ones that hit 90% of the criteria, and just literally getting rid of everything else. And just doing that with like all these decisions in life. And like, man, that is absolute fire, honestly. Because he's like, why would you want to go all in on something that doesn't hit 90% of the criteria? And I think there's obviously times to change this, and it's just making time for those people in my brain, because I've never talked with them. I believe I'll get some of them on my podcast soon, but until then, I get to get some of their vibe from afar, and that's something beautiful, man. That you're making space for that stuff now instead of scrambling later. You're doing the slow cook. That's how I'm doing this, the slow cook.
It's like oh, what's it called? Gumbo. It's that type of stew that that you have to like slow cook over a couple days, but it's one of like the best tasting foods out there. That's like what you said. That it's that slow cook. It's the consistent small action to get to where you want. There's been a lot of, we make breakthroughs every single day. We also might stick with limitations for a while. Dallin, what's a limitation that you feel like you're holding on to and that you're currently working on to break through?
I would say it's a lack of organization.
Okay.
Thinking that I have to do, like, I have to have all these different things that are so discombobulated, and maybe holding on to some beliefs. Because I've had people tell me, like, you're messy, blah, 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 blah. And I've had other people say, man, you're so organized, blah, 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 blah. And so it kind of comes back to which one do I want to be? And on a general basis, I don't really spend much time for organizing my computer. It is a mess. I won't lie, it is a mess. It needs a lot of help. But to believe like, yeah, man, I could have it all super organized and whatever, because I know it make a big difference. But I think there's just a part of me that is like, I'm not quite able to do it, or just like there'll always be more. But if you organize the system the right way, that whenever you add something new in, then it has to fit inside the system or it doesn't go in the system at all. I mean, I think there's others, but at least in this immediate moment, it's that like as things keep stacking, like somehow I'll lose track of it and I won't be able to keep it going, and I'll lose something, and woe is me.
When you try to fit a new thing in the system, what do you do to make it fit?
So when I get something new in the system, I think I think it kind of goes back to the criteria thing. Is this worth holding on to? Do I already have a copy of this? And if it does fit all that criteria, then making that space for it. But I think a lot of it is about treasuring the space, because with my brain, I treasure the space very much because I'm like, bro, I'm going to make most of my money from what is going on in here and in my heart, of course. And it's not going to be from digging up potatoes, which is what I did for a summer, and that was a beautiful experience. A lot of sweat. I learned a lot from that, but it's vital. And the same thing goes with my computer. And I think having like a remote desktop, having some way to do that, so I could buy another computer and use the same computer, and to be able to hand everything over to somebody else is very, very important. So slowly being able to do that would be huge too. But I think it's a it's a process, man. And that's something I really try to just kind of believe in, because as things grow and things get bigger, I do need to be able to locate a file in like 2 seconds with most files, because there's going to be some really important ones.
I love that our conversation's gone from the breakthroughs that we have to the lessons that we learn. A lot of the times we forget that whenever we do something great or even just do something good, we forget to reward ourselves for it. And on that flip side of whenever we do something great, we don't tend to learn the lesson, or we don't tend to think about a lesson that comes from it, because we only usually try like, oh, we failed at something. There's no such thing as failure. There's only success and learning. But we might forget, well, when we have those successes, that it's a crucial part to learn the lessons in between. And I love how our conversation is going from those breakthroughs that you've had in your life to the lessons that you've learned. Because I'll just throw this out to you. How important are lessons?
It's vital. And the fact that you're celebrating the learning journey says everything about where your soul is. So one of the playlists I have right now, it's called Victory Lap. So whenever I do something, like succeed at something, do something I really appreciate myself doing, I'll sometimes just put that on and be like, yeah, baby, like that's a W. There was days when I was living in Utah last time I was there, and kind of in this deep rebuilding process, and I would just kind of put on my victory lap. Like at the end of the day, it's like, man, this is a dub. You can go to bed in faith that tomorrow will be a better day, and that you can take all this stuff and use it. But I think it's really important, man, to reward yourself and to appreciate that learning journey. Because like Mario, for example, whenever you get to that flagpole, it's like yeah, it's like, yeah, bro, you did that. And it helps you keep going, and it helps you just embrace the journey of being you. And I've certainly had those times in my life recently where it seems like God's like, hey, put that track on. It's like, you know, but it's like for me, and it's on a very personal level, and it gives me a lot of excitement for what's to come. But it comes from the learning. It comes from like, okay, this has come up, and I have learned from this before. I've faced this enemy before. I've faced this obstacle before, and I will choose to use water against the ground type instead of flying against the ground type. It's like, okay, yeah, we learned from our mistakes. And there's a lot of joy in learning from mistakes. And it means that you're able to do new stuff that you didn't do before, because you literally already know, like, okay, we're gonna do something different. And it just opens it up, man. And you think of this podcast, about saying that, keeping that light alive, it changes how the rest of you looks. There's a scripture in Matthew 6:22, and it just says the light of the body is the eye. And so if we have a lot of really good things going through us, and we're putting that stuff out into the world, it's going to show all over us. It's going to just light us up, man. Light us up.
What took you from someone who feared or cared a lot about what other people thought to the person you are today?
Oh boy. There's a lot of things. I think one of the biggest things was just my poetry, being able to write poetry out, being able to get all these thoughts on paper, and then being able to talk with people and then being like, yeah, man, this is fire. This is great. There's a couple poems that are not even in a book yet that I wrote it, and then I'd go and talk to somebody about it, like, oh yeah, this is good. And it kind of goes back to where we started at the beginning. Like, I've been singled out many times, and now I'm learning to single myself out. Like, I've learned to do that, but now I'm learning to do that every single day. Like, I'm going to do what somebody is not going to do, because I want what this future version has, and I also want to do something with these good feelings and encouragements. But I think on a very basic level, it's like a lot of things I do are unconventional. Like, a lot of people don't go and aren't willing to talk to every single person they see. I am. And it's led to me meeting a ton of amazing people. And it comes down to a lot of the basic beliefs I have, that we're all children of God, and that we need to treat each other as brothers and sisters. There's a lot of that, but a lot of it was just these tough conversations with myself, and trying to find validation through other people, and it always coming up short, and it never being enough. But learning, like, hey man, when you're just vibing, I found this out in college, in the midst of like trying to play status games or whatever, maybe a little bit, being able to just sit on a bench and be like, man, dude, just writing here on this bench, like, dude, life feels amazing. And on the day I went full time, I still have a recording of it. I was like, bro, I've never felt so secure about my financial life ever. And it's because I know that I'm going to make it. It's going to be big, because it's like, now we're finally going all in on my own thing, instead of trying to like do half this and half try to figure out what, like, do something just to appease the world. It's a beautiful thing, beautiful freedom. But on a basic level, it's just freedom to be me, man. And me has always been singled out and doing other stuff that maybe people can't understand, but it makes sense to me. And think a lot of it was built for future stuff. And so I think will become more and more relevant over time. But for now, I'm just going to keep building here and enjoy the journey.
Enjoy the journey. I love that. As we are starting to wrap up, I wanna ask you, if you were to give one piece of advice to your teenage or younger self, what would be one piece of advice that you think would impact you the most?
I think one of the biggest things for me is reassurances and encouragements from multiple places. So I think to hear it from the future version of me would be really cool. When I'd pray in my tears and be like, God, like, what is going on? And I kind of have that feeling like your time will come, to have the future version of me also be like, yeah, bro, God's not lying, man. I think that would help, because I think the relationship, no, I know the relationship I had with myself was on the rocks a little bit in high school, and making that decision to take myself out of school was huge. Doing track was huge. Doing the doing basketball and the YouTube channel was huge. And these things all helped build the relationship with myself. But to know that the relationship with myself could be in such a great place as it is right now would have completely blown me away. But I think it would just be something like that. Like, yeah, man, like God's not lying. It's going to come together. I don't know what else would have impacted me as the most, because for me, God has just kind of opened my mind and helped me to do these things, and faith has helped out a lot of my journey, and he's provided for me. So just to know, like, yeah, like, you're not crazy. This is real. This is happening. But I think sometimes when we just have that witness from God, it's kind of difficult. But then when we get all these other things to help support that, like, oh, okay. But yeah, dude, it's wild to think about it, because we're gonna get there either way. The years are gonna pass by either way. We get to choose what we'll do with them. And I think the last thing I'll say, because this has been impactful for me recently, is thinking about how, what if your life was the movie and it was beginning like right now? Like, literally, this is how the movie starts. You're listening to Dallin and Willie talk, and then you get to write the next part. And for me, like, it's like knowing that you can pick up something, you can take these emotions and run with them. You can be the writer, the script, and it's it's a beautiful thing. And with your permission, Willie, I have a poem I wanted to share really quick from my book, just to kind of help somebody feel, because I think feeling is so vital. So I wrote this poem for pretty recently for this book, but it's about this feeling I had back in May 2022. It's called "The Blanket's Gone." It's kind of about this feeling we're talking about right now. And it's me talking to God, right? Father, I'm trying to sleep, but I feel the dark thoughts start to creep. Tell me I'm lost, that I'm no good. I've tried to do everything that I should. It doesn't seem like it was enough. I'm tired of just pushing through, trying to be tough. I once was warm, but now I am cold. I was singing my song, but now the blanket is gone. How I love the life you have given to me, but right now my toes are screaming. I can offer them no immediate release. I have no news to offer them fresh peace. They're cold, as am I. I feel underground, whereas before I touch the sky. Will I get back up there again, filled with confidence to write with my life's pen? I hope so. I do. I'm trying to trust you, but it's so hard to trust myself. This night is long. The blanket is still gone. The comforts I once wrapped myself in, they gave me rest, knowing I'd done my best. They seem so shallow. I have no words for it. And so that is where I would say my greatest victory in life has always come from trusting God, and from letting him move me and help me out, and letting him help me build the vision and then going after it. And for me, reading that just helps me feel encouraged. Like, the comfort comes from God and from doing what he wants you to do, not from anything anyone else could ever do for you. And so yeah, I'll just leave it there. Like, it's all about doing what God wants you to do and trusting him and being an instrument for him. And that has brought me the most joy in my life.
Where can people find your book on poems?
Yeah, so it's called God is Trying to Talk to Me. That's one of the poems. It's on Amazon. And as of this recording, it's not in the bookstores, but let's see about that.
Heck yeah.
It's been interesting, man. There's certainly some limitations with that, but I need to move quicker. and get on more podcasts and stuff. But yeah, it's on Amazon and it's there.
Cool. And for you listeners, we'll put that down in the description so you can click on the link and find Dallin's book. Dallin, you're on Instagram, you're on LinkedIn, you're on all you're omnipresent, you're all over. Where do you want our wonderful champion listeners to follow you on?
It'd probably be my Substack, like where I do my weekly newsletter writings. I think that is where I get a lot of the deep nuggets. I get to share those each week. And I think that's worth the listeners' time. And if it's not, they can always unsubscribe. But for me, I think that really helps distill a lot of the things that I've learned from the week. And I see that getting more and more and more poignantly powerful, and just sharing a lot of the behind the scenes on my journey as it unfolds, as it grows, as it builds. So that's where I would send them for sure.
Awesome. And that link will also be down so that people can subscribe to you right there. What I like to do, I found this on a different podcast. It's called The Last Question. And I love the framework of it. Oh, I can't remember who did it, but the person before you who was interviewed left a question for you to answer. Now, they don't know that it was you, and you're not going to know who they were, but it's a question out there for you to answer. So the last question is, all of us have childhood heroes. Who is your childhood hero?
I really think it was there's a lot of answers I could give. But the one that came to mind first was my cousin Clark. He just seemed impenetrable. And when he did have struggles, he just turned to God, and he stuck with wanting to make the football team, and he made the football team. And he's just somebody that does what he starts, finishes what he starts, and when he needs to, he lets go and he tries again. And right now he has a family, and he's doing a lot of things that I would like to be doing with my life. And just way back in the day, like, this sounds silly, but like playing video games, we're like on the same team in the video game. I always felt like safe with him, that he was going to do everything he could to protect me and encourage me in the game. And just had a lot of memories with him, man. And my older brother has autism, and I've had a lot of awesome memories with him. But for me, Clark helped fill in the gaps with a lot of those other things. And he helped me get into Pokemon. I mean, there's a lot of things there. That's what came to mind first. Just so many memories with him. I would put him in that, as the first thing that came to mind.
I love that. I love that. Thank you, Dallin, for letting me interview you on this wonderful platform where we can talk about the breakthroughs and the stories and the lessons that we have. So that's been another episode of Light Beyond Limits, the podcast where we talk about the breakthroughs and talk about the stories past our limitations and the lessons that we learned from it. We had a wonderful special guest, Dallin Candland. All of his links to his book, to his social media, as well as anything else, they'll be in the description. You can go in there, over there, and find it. If you found inspiration today, go ahead and subscribe to Light Beyond Limits. Where we just have a good old time talking to people and learning. If you are looking for something more in your life, then go ahead and check out the other episodes that we have, where we have other interviews and other wonderful experience, wisdom, golden nuggets that we share. And until next time, continue to light up your life, continue to be awesome, and continue to take the small actions needed to be the person who you are. Because if you don't already know, you are the person that you need to be to take the next step to get to the next level that you're at. And until next time, we'll see you later on Light Beyond Limits.